Hello, my prodigal sons and daughters. I am your humble host, Hollywood. Today, I'd like to take a look at the classic run-and-gun shooter, Painkiller. Here's a little peek behind the scenes to give you kids context. I had chosen this game for an upcoming list video in my Your Dad Picks 5 series. I played through it for the video, but as I was writing the script for the game, I found myself wanting to say more about it than a 3 to 5 minute segment would allow. So I rewrote the script for a standalone video. Don't worry, I'm still working hard on the list video, as well as some other exciting projects. They're coming, but I ask for a little patience as these videos take me a while to create. If you haven't noticed, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a very busy guy, and I own and operate a small business that takes up a ton of my time, so getting work done on these videos is always a challenge. This video is solely about the first game, and doesn't cover the DLC, Battle Out of Hell, or the sequel, Painkiller Overdose. It's also worth mentioning that this is Painkiller Black Edition, and this is the original version of the game. The Hell and Damnation Edition was released in 2012 and changed some graphics, animations, mechanics, and even the story. It kind of made the game worse in my opinion. The Black Edition is still the best way to experience this amazing game.
Everybody got that? Good!
Have you kids played this game? Let me know in the comments what your favorite weapon or enemy was. As usual, spoilers ahead, as your dad plays Painkiller. Painkiller is a popcorn shooter that's kind of a guilty pleasure, like watching Con Air or The Lost Boys.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
It's a Serious Sam inspired shooter that came out in 2004, and like Serious Sam in 2001, the main draw is the pure gunplay and the simplicity of the presentation. This title knows what it is and delivers the goods. Hordes of varied and detailed enemies come at the player in 20 glorious levels, and the goal is always the same: destroy everything that moves. The story sees the protagonist, Daniel, get into a terrible car accident with his girlfriend, Catherine, because he drives like an asshole in the rain.
Oh, I can't believe how hard it's raining. We sure picked a great day to celebrate my birthday.
Oh, it's just a little rain. It'll dry. Anyway, we'll be there in no time.
What?
We find ourselves 30 years later, caught in a sort of purgatory between heaven and hell, unable to get to either destination because we are unpure.
Do this, and you will be pure.
I was pure?
So you say. I'm not here to debate. Do this, and you're free to be with your Catherine again. You were chosen because of your abilities. You've managed to survive this long, and that is impressive. This is what has set you apart from the others, and he thinks that you're the only one capable of pulling it off.
Why doesn't he just take care of this? Why can't you do it?
If he gets involved, the assault we're hoping to prevent might be launched prematurely, and kill the generals, and Lucifer's armies will retreat. Either you take this or you don't. If you don't, I can't tell you when we'll speak again. I know you've been here for a while, and I assume you want to leave. Your time has come. Take it or leave it.
Okay.
The angel, Samael, tells us that Catherine is in heaven, and we need to prove our purity by wiping out 4 generals of Hell's army before we can join her. Daniel disagrees with the purity angle, but has no choice. He agrees to hunt the armies of Hell and take out the 4 commanding demons and effectively end the war. The story is mostly unimportant and is just an excuse to carve up hordes of demons in a wild variety of locales. We'll come back to it in a bit, but let's focus on the gameplay for the moment. Painkiller has an awesome roster of weapons that are mostly unique depictions of staples and classics of the shooting genre, along with some truly original inventions. We have the shotgun, the titular Painkiller, the electro driver, which fires shurikens, as well as deadly arcs of electricity. The stake gun and grenade launcher, and the rocket launcher and minigun, rolled into one badass package. Now on paper, there are only 5 weapons, but each one is pulling double and even triple duty with various alternate fire modes that effectively doubles the arsenal options at your disposal, as well as some weapon synergies that were way ahead of their time in a shooter from 2004. Enter the Gungeon was made a full 12 years later that expounded on some of the ideas here. The beefy shotgun looks like it was tossed together with whatever parts were handy around the shop, and perfectly suits the game aesthetic. Its double barrel action has a fire rate that is pretty quick for a shotty, and the pellet spread is pretty egregious. This would make you think it's only useful at close ranges. But it can be useful against mobs of lesser enemies at medium distances too, because the pellets can stun smaller demons, even if only one pellet connects, effectively peppering a group of targets for less damage to the individuals. It's a viable option if ammo is low for other choices. It also has the alternate fire mode of a freeze shot that is massively useful against larger enemies. Some of the biggest demons in the game are turned from imposing threats to greasy smears on the ground thanks to the overpowered freeze mechanic. Once they are frozen, they get insta-gibbed with any attack from the player or even friendly fire from other enemies. Even in the later stages, where stronger opponents come at you in waves, this freeze blast combo handled business better than rockets, making the shotgun a must-have in almost every encounter. The Painkiller is the starting weapon, and looks like it could have been made by Hellraiser's Cenobites as a form of eternal torture.
We have such sights to show you.
But this little bastard was too effective and deadly for their more prolonged needs, so they threw it away, and now it's Daniel's first line of defense against the hosts of hell. The Painkiller has 3 vicious blades spinning as a primary melee attack that decimates groups of bad guys with ease. Sometimes, the best defense is a good offense, and it stuns the enemy indefinitely until they are ripped apart. It's wickedly fun and cathartic to blow a horde into bloody chunks and shower the area with viscera and red mist. The secondary fire mode launches the bladed head out to attach to the environment. It sticks to any surface it lands on, and as long as you aim your reticle at the head, it connects back to the player with a deadly beam of energy. You can even fire the head at enemies for good damage that comes in handy as an impromptu ranged weapon if needed. But the best use of this weapon is when you combine the primary and alternate fire modes. Then it becomes a small, slow-moving wall of death that deals massive damage to anything unfortunate enough to get caught in its path. Demons burst into gory little chunks like they've been inflated to 120 psi. Fucking beautiful. This might be the most useful and imaginative starting weapon of any game ever. The Electro Driver is great for smaller groups of enemies and has an awesome design. That thwipping sound effect as ninja stars are rapidly ejected is satisfying as hell. Arcs of lightning sizzle and vibrate foes like they have music in their soul. I enjoyed this weapon quite a bit, but I used it minimally because there really isn't a perfect scenario where the Electro Driver is the best choice. Almost every other weapon has ideal uses, and this one is great at crowd control with the Electric Boogaloo and seriously fast fire rate. But every other weapon in the arsenal is good at crowd control too, but also more versatile with a synergy or single target damage, making the Electro Driver a solid choice, but not necessarily the best choice. It also chews through ammo faster than a gambling addict on payday. This gun is more of a novelty compared to the others, but it gets major points for style. The stake gun is simply one of the best weapons in any shooter ever. The stakes themselves are almost 3 feet long and 4 inches in diameter, pinning anything that moves to the wall. Even better is that you can strategically shoot higher level enemies and bosses from a distance to increase the damage. The stakes become engulfed in flame after a certain distance and wreck whatever they hit, but they have a falling arc to them, which you have to account for, making this handheld ballista easy to learn but hard to master. The fire rate's pretty low as well, so be ready to quick swap weapons if you missed your shot. The heft and animations of this weapon feel impactful and awesome. The havoc physics that ragdoll enemies make for truly entertaining moments as demons spin around or fly through the air about 6 feet to stick to the wall behind them. The alternate fire for this one is a bouncing Betty grenade that's great for groups, making the stake launcher a deadly option for close quarters or ranged attacks. The workhorse of my playthrough is the rocket launcher minigun combo. This is a perfect match with high damage for both rockets and bullets, and is great for any situation as long as you have ammo. The chain gun positively spits bullets at a blistering speed, and it's insanely accurate at any distance. The rocket launcher is basic, but highly effective with considered placement against groups or single targets. I feel like I use the chain gun more than the rocket launcher, but not by much, as they are both supremely useful against everyone. Every weapon feels amazing and impactful when you fire it. The bulky weight of the substantial weapon models feels palpable, and the way the screen shakes with every bullet from the chain gun adds the right detail to make it stand out and feel just right. The gut-wrenching sound as a giant stake is discharged from the ballista is perfect. Gunplay is the focus of Painkiller, and People Can Fly did an amazing job. This game is impressive in the minute details by today's standards, let alone back in 2004. Finally, we have the Demon Fury mode we have to go over. As you decimate the locals, you can collect their souls after their body despawns. The souls disappear after a few seconds, so you need to make a point to grab them before they return to hell. When you collect 66, you activate a Demon Fury that shreds enemies with one click of the mouse. The screen becomes black and white with potential targets glowing red. This activates with or without your consent if you collect 66 souls, so it becomes a little strategic to time that last soul grab for the most effective moment. It's also interesting that Daniel has this ability in the first place, and does bring his purity into question. Maybe Samael has a point, Daniel, and a little self-reflection might do you some good. Anger issues aside, this is the most powerful ability in the game, and it benefits Heaven and Daniel alike. So Samael, and ostensibly God, are massive hypocrites to make his, quote, impurity a barrier to his entry into heaven, and then to blackmail him to use his impure abilities for their own agendas and war efforts. The implications actually make this story a little more interesting in my opinion. The levels are quite diverse, with your typical graveyards, churches, and castles, as well as military compounds, industrial shipping yards, snowy suspension bridges, medieval castles, towns, and my personal favorite, some Middle Eastern Enlightenment architecture that is a joy to explore, even if the levels are kind of empty and basic. Seriously, this was in 2004, a good 18 years before the Shifra River blew us away in Elden Ring. The graphics are, admittedly, a little dated, but the spirit and art direction make Painkiller timeless. The chunky enemy models are stylized and detailed with proportions that make them stand out. Maybe the hands are just a little too big and show off those nasty-looking fingernails. Maybe the hoods of the corrupted monks have an extra sinister angle to the top line to make it pop. Weapons and enemies alike are detailed in an almost cartoonishly realistic fashion. This makes them special and stand out in a sea of banality. The levels have the same art direction to help overcome the shortcomings of the engine and lack of detail in the environments. The large open areas won't amaze you like the ultra-realistic details in a modern Resident Evil game, but they have a certain beauty and charm. You'll be bunny hopping your way through the stages with a smile on your face as you bound your way over to the next checkpoint and battle arena. Every level takes approximately 15 to 30 minutes to get through, so Painkiller is a perfect choice to fill in some time between daily tasks. And between levels, you have access to the tarot cards. Tarot cards are unlocked by finishing a level with certain parameters met, like only using one kind of weapon, or finding a certain amount of gold or souls. Mechanically, tarot cards activate various buffs that can be applied to any level to help you win, but each tarot costs gold to lay down on the card table and activate. Gold can be found by breaking objects in the stages and defeating enemies. And because I'm a filthy casual, I played on normal difficulty, and I mostly ignored this aspect of the game. Although I imagine it comes in handy if you're a completionist and want to finish every challenge. Replaying the game for this video was a blast, and I was amazed at how many enemy types there were. Almost every level has their own group of demons and hellspawn to cut through, and they are all extremely detailed for the time. Zombies are found alongside Hell Knights, witches, Hargravens, undead war veterans, Jinn warriors, literal Hell's Angels. Well, you get the idea. There are hardly any enemies that are reused in the levels, and if they are, it's at a minimum. The enemies are varied, not only aesthetically, but mechanically as well. Demons will fight and react differently depending on the situation. I saw numerous occurrences of infighting because of friendly fire between bad guys, and things got heated, with demons turning on one another and ignoring me completely. I even saw one type of night zombie targeting another type of enemy for no other reason that they were ugly and pathetic. No shit, I watched this happen more than once, and I got the distinct impression that there was a gang war in hell, and those Skull Knights were marked for death. I witnessed crows feasting on the corpses of fallen monsters. And this is all the more interesting when you consider that Hargravens despawn into a murder of crows when you put them down. There seems to be a hierarchy and story to these villains beyond a passing glance. My favorite monster interaction in my playthrough had to be this Ghost Rider-looking motherfucker.
Surprise, motherfucker!
As he picked up a biker gang dude by the dome and used him as an undead shield, mad-dogging me with malicious intent through glowing, empty eye sockets.
I'll be right in my prime, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
My jaw dropped when I saw that happen. The enemy interactions add so much character and personality to an already impressive game. Not to mention the bosses. Painkiller came out a full year before God of War and the Shadow of the Colossus, and the bosses are all larger than life. They all have their own arenas and methods of extermination, making them stand out as a memorable part of the game. My personal favorite being the Alistair fight at the top of the Tower of Babel. This multi-staged fight is probably the best in the game, with 3 different levels being packaged in one pretty awesome boss encounter, with different attack patterns and health pickups to learn for each. The other bosses were good enough, but Alistair felt different than the other 3, like he was a real character in the game, and not some generic concept art that was implemented for the sake of a boss fight, without refinement or development. The final boss of Lucifer is also pretty cool.
You know, I didn't want to reveal myself to you, and I thought I wouldn't have to. But it seems that Alistair did not do what he was told. Apparently, I was right. I told him many times it was way too early to start the final war. Regardless, if I can't have heaven, I'll take something else. This should tide me over for now. It's been a while. Oh, you'll enjoy it. Trust me.
It has a unique take on the shooter genre, and the whole level takes place in a snapshot of war throughout human history. It was rather poignant and thought-provoking to have to fight demon spirits in a level that was designed to show a still image of the horrors of war, starting with medieval warfare and trebuchets in mid-assault, gradually evolving to the trenches of World War I. And finally ending with the conclusion of nuclear holocaust. The grand edifices and weapons that man has erected and wield with such confidence become pathetic and useless in the wake of the destruction we unleashed upon ourselves. This level shows the harsh realities of war in grim repose against the cathartic and violent gameplay we just experienced. I'm not sure I have ever experienced such an extraordinary boss level, where the environment tells more story than the main villain does. Lucifer himself is hiding just beyond the perception of the player, and is only revealed to fight when enough demons have been slain. like he was there throughout human history and was the real reason behind all the bloodshed and tears. He was probably there next to God when that magic was written, to reference C.S. Lewis. Not that I want to turn this video into a philosophical and theological discussion, as I don't really believe in heaven and hell. The dark side of human nature is more than capable of such atrocities. But, believer or not, this final battle gave me pause to reflect on the nature of evil, reflect on my place in society, and what steps we can take to benefit our kids' future, not destroy it with senseless violence and war. What we do in our temporary lives leave permanent echoes for future generations to deal with. Only a video game can simultaneously tell you a story and make you the storyteller in such a fashion. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but unexpected moments like this are what make games great. The story of Painkiller is campy, a bit silly, and internally inconsistent. It seems like it was written by an angsty teen that just discovered boobs and the Book of Enoch and ran with the source material for both. But it's good enough to keep me interested, with a power struggle going on in the ranks of hell. It doesn't take itself too seriously, unless it's making intelligent statements about society and the wages of sin and war. In both cases, it's death. Another example of unexpected profundity were the moments in between the waves of combat, where the player can roam an area of a level freely and enjoy the sights. The music calms down from the heavy metal soundtrack to a more somber tone, and the true scale of the levels can be appreciated. For a game that takes place in between life and death, heaven and hell, these places do feel like a purgatory. The empty halls of a Zurich train station feel melancholy without the bustle of life. The mournful air of a monumental cathedral seems almost hopeless without the congregation to use the space for worship. The impossible proportions of the industrial factories hint that things are beyond our understanding, and the world is not as it seems. It leaves an impression of vapid nothingness against our everyday lives, and every new area gives an otherworldly sense of despondence, a sadness that only comes from a place of true solitude. Painkiller is a game about a lone human fighting their demons, literally and figuratively. There's a little more heart and soul to this game than first glance would reveal. My favorite level was ascending the Tower of Babel. The scenery is beautifully haunting, and I had a moment in my head where I started to question where the story was going. Were the demons using a tower erected by men to open the back door into heaven and take the war beyond the pearly gates? I had a moment where I was excited at the prospect of waging a war on the steps of heaven, as demon and angel were tidally locked in an epic struggle, with Daniel turning the tide of the conflict. Nope, no such payoff. Was Lucifer trying to get an audience with God himself to negotiate a peace treaty, and Daniel was messing up a chance at a truce? What is Daniel's true role in all of this? Is he an unwitting pawn in a deeper apocalyptic scheme? No. Rest assured, the story never explores anything deeper than the superficial narrative as a window dressing to blast some demons in their evil faces. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Not every game has to have an award-winning script to be engaging. Serious Sam made waves for its old-school, pure shooting action in the wake of Half-Life's influence. Painkiller refined those ideas and introduced some truly avant-garde weapons and elements to make that formula its own. It has a more considered approach to the uncompromising combat that holds up even by today's standards. The chunky and antiquated graphics are propped up by stellar art direction and a style that is instantly recognizable. The story is melodramatic and tongue-in-cheek, which makes it more enjoyable with the package. Painkiller may not push the boundaries of interactive storytelling or tactical gameplay, but it simply invites you to have fun for a few hours. That's the best trait. Distilled fun. Even the most sophisticated gamer can have a great time at Painkiller's party. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content to come. Life is too short not to enjoy what you love. Take care, you crazy kids.